to rise to 3% of GDP in the next Parliament.
No, sorry, I'm not having it. So he's going to spend more of our money on defence, is he? Yeah, great, marvellous. Let's talk to Carl Williams, Research Director of the Centre for Policy Studies. Carl, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm sorry to keep you waiting there. I thought the Prime Minister might have something interesting to say, but unfortunately I was proved wrong. He's once again taken the opportunity to try and deflect from his kind of woes at home and to talk about international matters. He seems to think that that's always where he can find himself on safe ground.
Well, indeed, and yet so many of the problems we're seeing on migration, on the economy, are in fact self-inflicted. Yeah, either by Rachel Reeves' budget or by Labour's inability to stop the votes.
Yeah. Exactly right. And I don't know about you, but this morning, looking at some of the stories that are peppered around in various different papers from the FT, saying that basically, you know, people who come here either legally or illegally will now have to wait 10 years to apply for residency, whether it's the story in the front page of the Times that migrants will have to speak better English if they're going to be allowed into the country, to the Sun, who say that the government's going to clamp down on these wacky judges allowing people to stay in the country even though they should be deported for being criminals. I mean, it's all a bit performative, it's all a bit perfunctory, it's all a bit, let's show how patriotic we are, let's show how much we're going to clamp down on these immigration statistics, when they're not really going to do anything of the sort.
No, I mean, in some sense, these things are steps in the right direction, but they're just doing the sort of common sense things we should have been doing for years.
Yeah.
I mean, take the English language requirement. The last census showed that there's 1 million people in this country who can't speak English well or at all. Yeah. And 2/3 of those people are unemployed. So yeah, we should obviously be doing something about this and about future waves of migration. But you know, it's sort of, you know, the
yeah, but I mean, are they actually?
The horse is bolted.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And they're trying to make out that, you know, tighter rules will insist on language ability close to A-level standard. But exactly how would they do that? Are they going to give people a test as they get off the boat in Dover? You know, they're going to hand them an exam paper and go, see if you can fill out that and tell me what you think Thomas Hardy's test of the D'Urbervilles was really about. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we know that there's quite a lot of fraud going on in this sector when exams are sat abroad. It's just something that's very hard to police.
Yeah. Well, you can't do it. That's what I'm saying. You know, no matter what they say, basically, you judge people, as my father used to say, on what they do, not on what they say. And what Labour do is they appear to want to encourage more people to come here from foreign countries, and they want to give them more chances to be successful than they do to people who are here already. You know, look at the trade deal they've just done with India. You know, they tried to even keep it secret that they'd given them a tax break by having no national insurance payments required for 3 years. And suddenly here we are looking down the sort of barrel of what looks like a massive scam, which is going to be taken advantage of by unscrupulous people who the Labour government and maybe the Tory government as well don't seem to ever see coming.
No, I mean, it's the same old, isn't it? There's new measures we're told, oh, this won't meaningfully increase migration. And we've heard that a lot over the last 20 years, and it almost always does in the end.
Yeah, it does, because at the end of the day, we are an attractive place for these people to come to, because unlike the rest of Europe, they will get treated better, they will be given more opportunity, they'll be given more money, more benefits, and less likelihood of being sent back from whence they came. And so that's why they continually come.
Well, precisely, in both legal and illegal routes.
Yeah.
You know this. And if the French actually say this, and I think the French are right on this, they're coming because it's so easy for them to work in your labour markets. Right. They know if they get here, they will stay.
Right. I mean, I don't know what it's like in other capital cities around Europe. I haven't been to very many recently, and I know certainly Paris has probably got the same problem that London has. But, you know, I've got messages from people all over the place saying, oh, we've just going to Norway for the weekend, or we've just been to, Italy, and we've just been here, there and everywhere. Oh, it's really nice, it's really quiet, it's lovely. You don't get all these kind of marauding gangs of people on scooters, you know, delivering food everywhere. You know, we've sort of become the main drawing point, it seems, for the world's immigrants.
Yeah, and I think it's not just London as well. I think what's really been noticeable in the last few years is how this has spread to more of the sort of provincial towns and even smaller settlements.
Yeah, I think that's right.
If you move out of London, you didn't have to deal with, you know, the downsides of migration. Now it's harder to escape. I
mean, do you think it's right to say that Britain as a whole has now been kind of sort of siphoned off by the cities being completely different from the countryside. You know, I find it at the weekends when I spend time, you know, outside of London, that, you know, it's much more like the England that I grew up in than, say, London is, or Manchester is, or Liverpool is. And, you know, it's almost like the inner cities, the metropolitan areas, certainly of England, have been completely changed, whereas the countryside has remained pretty untouched by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically true. I mean, it reminds me of something Professor David Coleman has said. He's a demographer at the University of Oxford.
Yeah.
He was saying, you know, on current trends, and this was before like the latest big migration wave of the last few years, he was saying that as things stood, the destiny of the English was to end up retreating into a rural hobbit-like existence in the shires as the cities were completely changed.
Yeah, and I mean, that's terribly sad, and it's rather a bad reflection of the state of our nation, the state of our government over the last several years, I suppose. But also, it bodes very ill for the future, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I mean, it raises all sorts of questions about cohesion and, you know, belief of people in the British nation state.
Yeah.
Obviously, it touches on, you know, the willingness of people to defend the country, which was Starmer's speech today. And also, you know, what's going on in Kashmir between India and Pakistan, will that spread out to the streets here?
Yeah.
In our big cities. I mean, we saw rioting in Leicester a couple of years ago,
right,
kind of sparked by a cricket match.
But that's it. I mean, again, you know, 10, 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been a conversation we'd be having. You know, you wouldn't be sitting there saying to me, well, we're a bit concerned about a big battle that's going on in Kashmir in case it spills over onto the streets of Britain. And you're kind of going, well, why would it? Why should it?
Well, exactly. I mean, the transformation is really startling, but it's kind of, sometimes it's like boiling the frog. I think often we forget just how rapidly things have changed in the last 20 years, or how dramatically things have changed.
It seems to me that the real massive rapid change has happened in the last 5 years, really. Pretty much ever since Boris Johnson declared when he won the election in 2019, we're going to cut net migration down to 20,000 a year. I mean, that was the beginning of the end.
Well, yeah, overall numbers will come down, the manifesto famously said. And in fact, net migration was about 2.5 million across the period. Gross inflow of 4.5. And don't forget, we're going to get new ONS stats next week, the week after, and those will probably actually revise the numbers up.
Yeah. That's true.
We just lost control.
Yeah, I mean, looking at a piece in the Times from yesterday saying that Britain's trade deal with India in the long run will probably cost the Treasury around £200 million in lost taxes, and they'll make it cheaper for Indian firms to bring workers into the UK. So, I mean, if that is not another recipe for making things even worse, both in terms of culturally and in terms of economically, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, until we see the impact assessments, it's going to be hard to know how many people this applies to. I think the people on these routes at the moment from India are, you know, we're talking less than 20,000 people. What we see is how much that grows by. And we have to remember that Britain is an extremely attractive destination for migrants from India. I think they are the main migrant group of the last...
Well, bully for them, but, you know, it should be an attractive destination for people from this country, shouldn't it? I mean, shouldn't we...
Indeed, that would be nice.
Somebody said to me yesterday, why not actually give a national insurance break to young people? You know, particularly those who, for example, are not currently working. You know, there's 9 million people economically inactive. Why don't you say to some of the younger people who haven't ever worked, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a national insurance break for 3 years if you go and get a job.
Yeah, I mean, that would be much more sensible.
It would.
Of course, Labour has actually done the opposite by putting up national insurance and lowering the thresholds for employees. It's tax on jobs, and, you know, we're seeing that in the economic slowdown now.
Exactly. And that seems to be the problem. With every step he takes, the country gets worse off. But listen, good to talk to you. Carl Williams, thank you very much indeed, Research Director of the Centre for Policy Studies.